After a very long wait, Scaramouche is finally playable in the form of the Wanderer, an Anemo catalyst user who takes to the skies to rain down a hail of blades at unsuspecting foes. And honestly, he's very exciting because the Wanderer is the very first and currently the only character who can levitate and move around almost freely and attack constantly while in the air. The current set of enemies, including weekly bosses in Genshin, actually cannot hit players if they're above a certain height, so without new enemies, the Wanderer is essentially immune to almost all forms of damage when he does enter his preferred mode of play, increasing his DPS potential immensely. This is Genshin Impact's first big step of evolving their combat to complement aerial fighting, a mainstay in Hoyoverse's previous game, Honkai Impact 3rd. Perhaps we'll start seeing more enemies that can challenge the Wanderer's aerial supremacy in the future. For the Wanderer to take flight, he must activate his elemental skill, Hanenga, Song of the Wind. When used, the Wanderer unleashes a small burst of Anemo, jumps into the air, and enters the wind-favored state, which allows the Wanderer to hover menacingly in place. Yeah, sure, you can do a bunch of other things, but dude can fly. That's pretty sick. This enhanced state is the core of the Wanderer's kit. It not only elevates his height and stature, but it also provides him with a new level of power and some amazing new mobility options while you're playing as him. When the Wanderer enters wind-favored state, he generates 100 Kugo Ryoku points that must be maintained for him to stay in the air, and these points essentially act as a stamina meter for the Wanderer's wind-favored state, so let's just call it aerial stamina. The Wanderer's normal and charge attacks are enhanced to do more damage and have greater AoE potential while he is within the wind-favored state, and the best part of it all is that you can really go wild with the Wanderer's movement because of his Ascension passive that has a 16% chance of activating each time you land a hit with a normal or charge attack while in his wind-favored state. When activated, the Wanderer gets a descend effect that makes his next dash in midair cost no stamina points and shoots out 4 wind arrows that deal 35% of the Wanderer's attack as area of effect Anemo damage. The passive has a rolling activation chance, meaning each time the descent effect does not activate, the following normal or charge attack will have an additional 12% chance to activate. You're guaranteed a free dash after 8 attacks, but more than likely you'll get it way before that. After all, the Wanderer's main damage output is in his normal attacks. He even gets an additional 10% attack speed from one of his constellations and a new artifact set designed solely for increasing attack speed, which we will cover later on in this video. I do want to note that the elemental skill cooldown is only 6 seconds, and to top it off even further, if you're planning on using his best in slot support, Faruzen, this elemental skill cooldown will be reduced by the Anemo resonance to be 5.7 seconds instead. The cooldown timer starts to count down only after the Wanderer exits the wind-favored state. The wind-favored state can manually be turned off by pressing the elemental skill button again or swapping to a different character. The Wanderer's burst has him compressing the atmosphere into a singular vacuum, drawing enemies in and dealing massive amounts of damage. This burst has a 15-second cooldown alongside 60 energy cost. It will also end the Wanderer's wind-favored state, so keep that in mind. One of the more interesting part of Wanderer's kit is the interesting mechanic in how he utilizes the initial swirl from the elemental skill's activation to give him a unique buff. Based on the element the initial skill activation comes in contact with, the Wanderer gains the following. By swirling Hydro, the Wanderer gets an increased 20 aerial stamina cap for a total of 120. By swirling Pyro, the Wanderer gets a 30% attack increase. By swirling Cryo, the Wanderer's crit rate is increased by 20%, and by swirling Electro, the Wanderer's normal and charge attacks will restore energy per hit. The Wanderer can have up to 2 buffs at a time, and the buff lasts until his wind-favored state ends. Honestly, I love this. It gives the Wanderer additional synergies and many interesting team comps that he can try. He's so flexible, and I'm interested in seeing what people do with it. I only really have one core recommendation for a teammate, and that is in the form of Faruzen, a 4-star Anemo support character that acts as a huge mono Anemo buffer, similar to Kujosera for Electro and Goro for Geo. Faruzen feels like an extension of the Wanderer's kit, supplying very significant Anemo resistance shred and super high Anemo damage bonus, alongside other Anemo specific bonuses that will be covered in a character video focused on her. Who will you be pairing the Wanderer up with? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're having a good time, support this channel by giving this video a like and consider subscribing for more content like this. Thank you so much. As for me, I would personally use the Wanderer in a melt team of some sort. Being able to consistently provide the Wanderer with 30% attack and 20% crit rate just by existing is huge. Ice characters like Layla, Burst Ganyu, Kaya, and even Chi-Chi can easily complement the Wanderer's flying kit. On the other side of the house, the omnipresent Jiangling, Bennett, and even Toma pairs well with the Wanderer. This also applies to vape teams, but you'll lose out on that 20% crit rate bonus, so if you have good artifacts, that might be something to consider. You'll get access to something like Sing Shou or Yelan, which are very strong. Permafreeze Wanderer also seems pretty fun, with both of these setups offering more movement capabilities in the form of increased aerial stamina. And lastly, there are synergies with Yunjin if you want to forsake Faruzen or one of the Swirl buffs, but I don't see you doing that. The option's there though. For artifacts, the Wanderer builds like a traditional DPS. Prioritize crit damage, crit rate, attack percent, and Anemo damage bonus. Elemental Mastery can be decent on him, but is not core compared to the aforementioned stats. Alongside the Wanderer, we'll be getting a new artifact set that just synergizes so well with him. It is called the Desert Pavilion set. The 2-piece bonus gives Anemo damage bonus, while the 4-piece bonus is crazy. It gives a 10% attack speed boost and a 40% normal charge and plunging attack damage boost after landing a charge attack. This is by far his best artifact set. And while you're working up to a 4-piece slot, I recommend 2-piece Desert Pavilion and 2-piece Veridescent for a generic 30% Anemo damage bonus. An alternate set that the Wanderer can make good use of is 4-piece Shimenawa, which increases his normal and charge attacks by 50% for 10 seconds whenever the Wanderer activates his elemental skill. The Wanderer has 100% uptime on this, and the drawback is very negligible due to its lower energy cost. The Wanderer benefits the most from these weapons. Tulatuya's Remembrance. It is a catalyst with a high base attack and a crit damage substat of 44.1%. This weapon's passive gives an increased attack speed of 10% right off the bat, and after the wielder unleashes an elemental skill, normal attack damage will increase based on the weapon's refinement rank every second for 14 seconds. While there is a huge potential for damage ramp up here, we do have to note that there is an upper limit cap on the amount of normal attack damage bonuses weapon can give. At refinement rank 1, you would actually be able to only get to 48%, and you probably get there way before that 14 seconds. This buff does not stay on the character if they leave the field. An alternative premium option for the Wanderer includes the Prayer of Lost Winds, which offers a decent attack stat, great substat and crit rate, and a passive that synergizes really well with the Wanderer's kit. The Lost Prayer gives movement speed and a bonus to just elemental damage in general. The movement speed bonus is deceptively good and allows the Wanderer to make more efficient use of his aerial stamina, so don't sleep on this one. And lastly, the Skyward Atlas gives a good increase in attack and an occasional damage boost from the AoE provided by its passive. Essentially, it's just a bundle of raw stats. Can't really go wrong with it, but it's not his most optimal catalyst. More freemium options include Solar Pearl and Dodoko Tails, both of which synergizes really well with normal and charge attack using characters, giving them an ample damage boost. The Width Lift, of course, is pretty decent as well, giving a good crit damage substat, and sometimes occasionally boosting your elemental damage by a whopping 48% at refinement rank 1. And one last weapon just for fun, Eye of Perception is not a bad option just because it does give you a lot of attack and a 50% chance of doing some splash damage with this passive. The Wanderer's Constellations are as follows. Constellation 1 gives the Wanderer an attack speed bonus to the Wanderer's normal and charge attacks while he is in his wind favored state. It also increases the damage of the wind arrows fired by his passive talent by an additional 25% of his attack as damage. The Wanderer's Constellation 2 gives his elemental burst a damage increase of 4% for every point of difference between the max amount of Kyoku Ryoku's point contrasted with Kyoku Ryoku's present capacity while using the skill. Through this method, the damage of your elemental burst can be increased by a maximum of 200%. Essentially, if you cast the Wanderer's elemental burst right as your aerial stamina is about to run out, you're gonna do tons of damage. The Wanderer's third constellation gives an increase of 3 levels to his elemental burst. The Wanderer's Constellation 4 allows the Wanderer to generate an additional random buff whenever he absorbs an applicable element for his Ascension passive bonus during the initial startup of his elemental skill. These buffs include the 30% attack boost and the 20% crit rate bonus. This constellation also increases his bonus cap from 2 to 3. Constellation 5 provides the Wanderer with 3 additional levels for his elemental skill. The Wanderer's Constellation 6 gives him a lot of things. First off, when he lands a normal attack hit while in the wind favored state, Wanderer will apply an additional normal attack at the point of contact that scales to 40% of the attack's original damage. The second part of the constellation allows the Wanderer to stay in his wind favored state for much longer. You see, when the Wanderer falls below 40 Kugo Ryoku points, 40 points will be restored to him every 0.2 seconds up to 5 times, essentially providing an extra 20 Kugo Ryoku points for a total of 120. While C4 and C6 look outrageously fun, I am happy to say that the most cost-efficient constellation for the Wanderer is Constellation 1. Constellation 4 is a huge investment and should only be done if you're planning on maining the Wanderer. Overall, I am pretty happy and excited at the unique movement options and playstyle that the Wanderer provides. Aerial combat is sick, and I hope this is the first of many new units in Genshin that can make good use of the skies. To restate, being in the air is more powerful than it seems. Most if not all enemies cannot hit you when you are above a certain height. Alongside that, the Wanderer also supports a great element, a focus kit, and a dedicated support to boot. He's looking to be very strong and in the right team comp to trivialize everything in this game for you. If you are interested in learning more about one of his better support options, check out this video on screen right now.